Dante is not the kind of man who jumps to conclusions, at least that is what he keeps telling himself. But something about Willow does not sit right with him. On Thursday, February 26th, the air around him feels heavier, like every conversation is loaded with something unsaid. After talking to Liz, he walks out of the hospital with this new kind of confidence, shaky but real. He thinks he finally has something solid in his hands. Or at least something that looks solid if you squint hard enough. I keep going back and forth about Dante. Sometimes he is too stubborn. Sometimes he is the only one actually paying attention. This time, I feel like he is onto something. Even if the path he has taken looks messy and maybe even reckless. He suspects Willow targeted Drew, not just in the past, not just as some vague suspicion floating around town. He thinks she is directly responsible for what happened to Drew this time, the stroke, the sudden collapse, the chaos that followed. The problem is ugly and complicated. Willow was already accused once of shooting Drew. She was cleared, officially innocent. The law does not care about gut feelings or second guesses. Double jeopardy is not some dramatic soap phrase. It is a wall. Even if Dante somehow finds proof that she shot Drew before, he cannot drag her back into court for the same crime, and that must drive him insane. Imagine holding evidence and knowing it changes nothing legally. That kind of frustration can twist a person. But this time, his suspicion is different. He does not think she pulled a trigger. He thinks she caused the stroke. That feels darker in a quieter way. A bullet is loud, obvious, poison, or tampering with medication. That is subtle, calculated. That is someone planning, someone waiting, and Dante believes there is a link. He cannot prove it yet, but Liz might have handed him the thread that unravels everything. Liz, who manages medications at the hospital, is in a unique position. She sees what comes in, what goes out, what is signed for, and what is not. If a certain toxin or a specific drug suddenly shows a massive shortage, that is not random. Hospitals do not just lose dangerous substances. If something is missing, someone took it, and if Drew's condition lines up with the effects of that missing substance, then the story shifts. I actually like that it is Liz who might help him. It feels grounded. She is not some random witness who overheard a convenient confession. She is methodical, careful, the kind of person who would notice if inventory numbers did not add up. I can imagine her standing in that storage room, staring at the logs, realizing something is off. And maybe she hesitates, because pointing that out could blow up lives. Dante, with this new information, feels more certain, maybe too certain. That is the danger. When you believe you finally see the pattern, you start connecting dots that might not belong together. But at the same time, what if he is right? What if Willow has been playing a long game, hiding behind her past acquittal-like armor? Just because she cannot be tried again for the shooting does not mean she is incapable of doing something worse now. And I have to say it. Willow has that quiet intensity. She does not explode. She does not rant. She absorbs. She waits. Those are the people who can surprise you. If she felt betrayed by Drew, or cornered, or desperate, would she go that far? I do not know. I want to believe she would not. But this is Port Charles. People snap in slow motion here. Meanwhile, Jason is moving in his own dangerous orbit. He tries to protect Britt, and not in a casual way. He is willing to put his life on the line for her. That is classic Jason. He does not give half measures. If he thinks someone is a target, he becomes the shield. I cannot help thinking that this is going to cost him. Cullum has ambition, the kind that chews through obstacles. Britt is apparently on his radar, maybe because of what she knows, maybe because of who she is connected to. Jason likely figured this out before anyone else. That is why he could be secretly following her, watching from a distance while she takes some mysterious trip. Britt slipping away quietly, thinking no one notices. But Jason always notices. The problem with following someone like that is you eventually get spotted. Cullum is not careless. If his men see Jason tailing Britt, it becomes a confrontation. I can almost picture it. A dark parking lot, a sudden movement, a blow from behind. Jason is strong, but he is not invincible. One wrong step, and he is the one lying unconscious. And then there is Brennan. His position feels slippery. Cullum might pressure him to take Jason out. Maybe he gives him a fabricated reason, claims Jason is a threat that needs to be neutralized. Or maybe Brennan owes him something. Debts in this town are rarely financial only. They are leveraged secrets, favors that turn into chains. If Brennan is forced to act, does he hesitate? Does he warn Jason? Or does he comply and hope the damage is minimal? I cannot decide if Brennan is weak or just trapped. There is a difference. A weak man chooses the easy wrong path. A trapped man sees the right path but cannot reach it. There is also the unsettling possibility that Brennan is tied to Jason's disappearance, if Jason does vanish, and Britt too. If Cullum decides to remove both of them to silence any threat completely, things escalate fast. I get this uneasy feeling that we are heading toward multiple missing persons at once. That kind of chaos ripples through everyone. Lucas, on another front, is walking into danger almost blindly. What frustrates me about Lucas is how calm he can be in the worst moments. He does not panic about himself. Or maybe he simply does not realize how much risk he is in. He goes to Ava to warn her about Sidwell. That alone says something is serious. But Lucas might not explain it clearly. Maybe he is rushed. Maybe he thinks Ava already understands the stakes. So he drops half sentences, hints about danger, connections that sound vague. Ava, who hates being left in the dark, probably feels confused, maybe even annoyed. That gap in communication could cost them. The truly chilling part is that Lucas might not even finish his warning. He could be attacked right after leaving Ava. Or worse, right in front of her. Imagine Ava watching him collapse, not even understanding who struck him. That would shake her more than any cryptic warning. And while all this unfolds, Chase is facing a different kind of crisis. Not bullets, not poison, but divorce. He does not want to think about it. He probably lies awake staring at the ceiling, telling himself it will not come to that. But Brooke Lynn is pushing him. She wants him to stop targeting Michael. She wants peace, or at least a ceasefire. She agrees to look into adoption with him. That feels like a step forward, a hopeful one. But I do not trust it. Something about Chase agreeing so quickly makes me uneasy. Maybe he sees adoption as a way to stabilize their marriage. Or maybe he has another plan entirely. There is this possibility hanging in the air that Chase might want to reunite with Willow, especially if Michael ends up in prison. That scenario changes everything. Willow alone, vulnerable, needing support. Chase stepping in, the old feelings resurfacing. It would be messy and cruel and very human. I find myself almost angry at Chase for even thinking that way. If he is plotting behind Brooklyn's back, agreeing to adopt while secretly keeping the door open for Willow, that is betrayal layered on top of desperation. But at the same time, people rarely move in straight lines when they are unhappy. Thursday looks like one of those days where every secret inches closer to exposure. Dante tightening his case against Willow, Jason risking himself for Britt, Brennan caught in a moral trap, Lucas stepping into an ambush, Chase possibly rewriting his future in his head. It is all tangled. No clean edges. And I cannot shake the feeling that the real explosions are not the obvious ones, not the punch in the alley or the missing vial of poison. It is the quiet decisions. Liz choosing to share that inventory discrepancy. Brennan deciding whether to obey Cullum. Chase choosing whether to stay loyal or drift back to an old love. Those are the moments that change everything. And once they happen, there's no undoing them. And the more I think about it, the more I feel like Dante is stepping onto thin ice without even realizing how cracked it already is. Because even if Liz hands him proof that some toxic substance is missing, even if the medical charts line up perfectly with Drew's symptoms, that still does not automatically put Willow behind it. Suspicion is not the same as guilt. Dante knows that. He is a cop, but he is also a man who has watched too many people he cares about get hurt. If he confronts Willow too early, he could blow everything. She might panic, or worse, she might act again. That is what scares me. If she really is responsible for Drew's stroke, then she is not just defensive, she is desperate. Desperate people do not sit quietly when cornered. They lash out, they cover tracks, they make mistakes, yes, but they also double down. I keep picturing a scene where Dante lays out the evidence in front of her, not officially, not in an interrogation room, but somewhere private, maybe at the hospital, maybe at her home. He looks at her and says he knows something is wrong. And Willow, instead of breaking down, just stares back at him calm, almost cold. That kind of reaction would shake him more than tears ever could. And Liz, poor Liz, she might not have expected her small discovery to spiral into this kind of storm. All she did was notice inventory discrepancies, a drug that should have lasted weeks suddenly running out, a sign-out sheet that does not quite match. That is how real investigations start, with boring details, not dramatic confessions, just numbers that do not add up. But if this turns into a formal accusation, Liz could be dragged into it publicly, her credibility questioned, her role at the hospital scrutinized, and I honestly think she would blame herself if the fallout gets ugly. That is the kind of person she is. She helps, even when it costs her. Meanwhile, Jason might already be bleeding somewhere, and that thought is not dramatic. It feels likely. If he followed Britt and Cullum's men spotted him, they would not hesitate. Jason is a threat simply by existing. He has history. He has loyalty that cannot be bought. Cullum probably sees him as an obstacle that needs to disappear. What makes this worse is the possibility that Britt does not even know Jason is protecting her. She might be walking into danger thinking she is alone, when in reality he is 10 steps behind, watching. If he gets taken down, she will not know until it is too late. And that delay could cost both of them. Brennan's involvement keeps bothering me, because if Cullum orders him to eliminate Jason, that is not just a business decision, it is personal. Brennan would be crossing a line that cannot be uncrossed. Maybe Cullum manipulates him, feeds him half-truths, claims Jason is planning something catastrophic. Maybe Brennan convinces himself it is justified. That is how people slide into darkness, not with one big leap, but with small rationalizations. And if Jason vanishes, people will notice. Carly would notice immediately. The silence would be louder than any gunshot. Britt too could disappear, either taken as leverage or because she tries to rescue Jason and gets trapped herself. 2 disappearances at once would send poor Charles into panic mode. And Cullum would pretend innocence. I can see that clearly. Calm, composed, denying everything. Lucas's situation feels different but just as dangerous. He is trying to warn Ava about Sidwell, which means Sidwell is not some distant threat anymore. He is close. Close enough that Lucas feels urgency. But Lucas has this frustrating habit of being vague when he should be direct. Maybe he is protecting someone. Maybe he is afraid of saying too much out loud. If he approaches Ava and says something like, "You need to be careful, Sidwell is involved," without explaining how or why, she is going to demand clarity. And that pause, that extra minute of confusion could be exactly when someone strikes. I honestly would not be shocked if Lucas gets attacked mid-sentence. It would be chaotic, unfair, abrupt, which is exactly how danger works. Ava witnessing that would change her. She pretends to be unshakable, but watching someone collapse because they tried to warn you, that leaves a mark. She would feel responsible even if it was not her fault. And if Sidwell is truly behind it, then this is not just intimidation, it is escalation. Then there is Chase, standing at the edge of a completely different kind of disaster. Divorce does not explode like a bomb, it erodes. He does not want to lose Brooklyn, I believe that. But wanting something and fighting for it properly are not the same thing. When Brooklyn pushes him to stop targeting Michael, she is drawing a line. Choose this marriage or choose your vendetta. Her agreeing to adoption feels sincere on her side. She wants a future, a child, stability. But if Chase is secretly thinking about Willow, then that agreement becomes something else, a cover, a distraction. And that makes it worse. If Michael ends up in prison, the whole dynamic shifts. Willow would be alone, vulnerable, maybe even blamed by others. Chase stepping back into her life at that moment would look like support, but it would also look suspiciously convenient. Old feelings do not just vanish, they get buried. And sometimes they resurface when circumstances line up perfectly. I am torn here. Part of me thinks Chase is just scared. Scared of losing everything. Scared of making the wrong choice. And scared people sometimes keep backup plans. That does not make it right. It just makes it human. But if he is actively planning to return to Willow while promising Brooklyn a child, that crosses into cruelty. What connects all these threads is this sense of people making decisions under pressure. Dante pushing forward because he cannot stand uncertainty. Jason risking his life because he does not know how to love any other way. Brennan possibly betraying someone because he feels cornered. Lucas trying to warn Ava but not fast enough. Chase balancing between loyalty and longing. No one here feels completely villainous or completely innocent. Even Willow, if she did cause Drew's stroke, might have convinced herself it was necessary. That is the scariest part. When someone believes their actions are justified, they become unpredictable. Thursday does not feel like a day of clear answers. It feels like the moment before everything tips. Evidence discovered but not yet revealed. Attacks that happen in shadows. Relationships that look stable on the surface but are cracking underneath. And I cannot help thinking that once the truth about Drew comes out, if it does, it will not just be about a crime. It will expose motives, alliances, hidden resentment. Dante might get his proof, but proving something and surviving the consequences are two different battles. If Jason is gone, if Britt is missing, if Lucas is injured, if Chase chooses the wrong path, the town will not look the same. These are not small ripples, they are fractures. Maybe I am overthinking it. Maybe some of these suspicions will dissolve into misunderstandings. But the tension feels real. Too many secrets moving at once. Too many people acting in silence. And silence, in this town, never lasts.